Hello Easy Enough English members, and welcome to this week's test preparation video. Now remember, we're still using this book, the ETS Official Guide to the New TOEFL IBT, and we're still dealing with the passage that's about desertification, okay? So our question today is, the word progressively in the passage is closest in meaning to A, openly, B, impressively, C, objectively, and D, increasingly. Before we do anything else, I'm going to read you the passage first, okay? And this is paragraph 6. And as always, I'll take a picture of this and put it in the comment section of this post. 4 specific activities have been identified as major contributors to the desertification processes: overcultivation, overgrazing, firewood gathering, and over-irrigation. Okay, now those are the things that cause desertification. Remember, desertification means when you take the nutrients from a land and it's no longer to support much life. It becomes like a desert, okay? The cultivation of crops has expanded into progressively drier regions as population densities have grown. So what that's saying is the cultivation of crops. The cultivation of crops is when people grow crops in a certain area, okay? And what that's saying is, because the populations in certain areas have grown so much, those people need to find more land to cultivate crops or to grow crops on, okay? These regions are especially likely to have periods of severe dryness, so that crop failures are common, okay? We know that because the sentence before said the cultivation of crops is moving or expanding into progressively drier areas, okay? So it would make sense that those areas don't see very much rainfall and they are much drier. They suffer from severe dryness, as the paragraph says. Since the raising of most crops necessitates the prior removal of the natural vegetation, which means if you want to grow crops in one place, first you must take out all the plants that are growing there naturally to plant the crops that you want to plant. And crops are plants that we eat. Okay? Crop failures leave extensive tracts of land devoid of a plant cover and susceptible to wind and water erosion. So now that you've taken the plants from that area where you want to grow your crops, then put your crops in and then wait for those crops to grow, but they don't because the land is too dry. Now you've taken away the natural vegetation of plants that were there, and your crops don't grow there. So the land is very barren. There's nothing there. So that's another reason why it's so easy for that land to suffer from desertification, because there's nothing to protect the soil. And so it erodes by water and wind, okay? Now, let's talk about our question. The word progressively in the passage is closest in meaning to openly, impressively, objectively, and increasingly. First, let's define our choices. Openly means everyone knows. If something is open, it's not hidden. Everyone knows it. Impressively. If something is impressive, it makes you say, wow. Objectively. To be objective is to be neutral, okay? Let's say you have 2 friends, okay? And each one of your friends likes a movie star and thinks that he is very handsome, okay? Let's say you have a 3rd friend. They ask you, the 3rd friend, what do you think about this movie star? Do you think he is handsome? And that friend says, no, not really, okay? Now, how can that be? 2 people said that movie star was attractive, but the other person said no. That's because beauty is something that is the opposite of objective. So beauty is subjective, which means it depends on one person's opinion. And opinions change from person to person. So that is what subjective means. But to be objective is to be something that everyone agrees with, something that it cannot be argued, okay? To be objective is also to be neutral, okay? So if someone were to say to you, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. That is a fact, okay? Everyone observes that to be true. That's what makes it a fact. It is an objective fact, which means it's not argued and everyone agrees upon that. It's objective, okay? That's what objective means. And increasing. And as we've talked about before in previous videos, to increase is to become larger or to become bigger in amount or size, which is what the definition was here. To become bigger in size or number, okay? Now, the next thing I want to talk about is that each of these is an adverb, which means it's modifying a verb or telling us how a verb happens, okay? So let's read the sentence that progressively appears in once more. The cultivation of crops has expanded into progressively drier regions as population densities have grown. So remember, what that's saying is because populations are growing in number, the amount of land also needs to increase to be able to feed all of the people in that population. Let's draw a picture. Okay, let's say we have here a plot of land. Okay, this population, the population of this area is 15,000 people. Okay, 15,000 people live here in this area here. Okay, that's where the people live. Now, this area over here is where it's too dry. Okay, people can't live here because they can't plant their crops here because the crops don't grow very well because it's too dry. So we can put a big X on this. Okay. Now let's say over a number of years the population of this area increases 5,000 to 20,000. And let's say this is the small area here. This is where crops are grown. Okay? This was the area where crops were grown when the population of this area was 15,000. Now that it's 20,000, this is probably not going to be enough land for these people to cultivate their crops. So they have to increase the amount of land or the area of land that they cultivate their crops on. So they're going to have to move. They have no choice but to move into this drier land just a little bit. Okay? Now let's say it expands to this area. Now we've expanded the land used for crop cultivation to this area because of the increase in the population. Remember, this means 20,000 people. Okay. Let's say after a few years, the population continues to grow to another 25,000. Now, just as it was when the population increased to 20,000, this area of land used to cultivate or grow crops is not going to be enough to feed this number of people. So, they're going to have to expand the land that they use to grow crops even more. So let's say, excuse me, they grow it even more. Okay? Now remember, this land was too dry to grow anything on in the first place. But because of the increase of people, of the expanding population, they've had to move further and further into dry land to grow crops because this small area is no longer enough, okay, for them to grow crops. And actually, this kind of doesn't make, I don't know why I chose to draw this shape. Why don't I just keep it in a rectangle, okay? That was bothering me. It looked a little silly how I had drawn it, okay? So, now, this is the amount of land that they use to cultivate crops as the population is 25,000 people in this area. But remember, when we initially started out, it was only here. So they've had to move further and further into drier land to cultivate their crops. Okay? So that's what that sentence is saying. So they've progressively, the amount of land for crop cultivation has progressively moved into drier and drier areas. So progressively, which means, what does progressively mean? So something is progressive, it happens step by step, okay? Now, as we go further this way, what's happening? We know that this land is too dry. So they told us in the sentence, let's read it one more time. Let me find it here really quickly. Okay. The cultivation of crops has expanded into progressively drier regions as the population increases. So this is continually drier. The more we move this way, the drier it gets. Okay. So that's what that means. So what does progressively mean in this sentence? Openly, everybody knows? Yes, well, everybody may know that this is true. Some people may not. It might not be hidden, but that's not explaining. This word is not explaining the progress, the step-by-step progress of the increase of population and the further movement into drier regions for crop cultivation. So this is not our answer. Okay. Impressively. While it may be impressive, but for this to happen, we usually use impressive for something that's good, okay? If somebody does something that makes you say, wow, that's a good thing, right? It's usually a good thing. You wouldn't say, wow, if something terrible were to happen, okay? And that's kind of what this example is. This isn't a good thing, okay? Because this is bad for the land, okay? And it's also bad for the population because as they increase, they might have less and less food to eat because, remember, as the article says, or as the paragraph says, crop failure is common because the land cannot support much life. It's too dry, okay? So impressively is not our answer because impressively has a positive or good connotation or meaning, and this is not good in our example. What's happening in our example is not good, okay? Objectively. Well, this doesn't really make sense. Nothing's really, well, it might be an objective fact that we're moving into drier and drier land, and nobody can deny that. But that's not, this word does not match the meaning of progressively. And remember, when we're asked these questions, basically what we're asked to do is to give a close synonym of the word in question, which is progressively. And a synonym is a word that means almost exactly the same, okay? So out of all our choices, we need to pick the one that's most accurate, the one that's closest in meaning to, okay? And this one is just not appropriate because it may be objective that we're moving into drier land. That's not what, objective doesn't explain the step-by-step progress, which is what progressively means. If something is progressive, it's step-by-step. So that leaves us with increasingly. Now you might have known that because as I was explaining some of this, you might have heard me use the word increasing a few times, right? That's because increasing is a close synonym to progressing. If something is progressing, okay, is moving further step by step. Increasing is also the same, also has the same meaning, okay? If something is increasing, it's moving step by step and it's going up, okay? So when we use the word progress, as in if you learn a skill and when you first start you're very bad, but as you keep practicing you progressively become better. You progress, you show progress, which means to get better, okay? So we're moving up in direction or in a positive way. So in this way, increasingly is the closest synonym of progressively in this sentence, because as the population increases, we're also increasing the amount of land that we're using for crop cultivation. Okay guys, well that's the video. I hope you liked the video. If you have any questions for me, you know how to reach me, okay? And as always, if you like the video, please leave a comment in the comment section, or if you would like to talk to me, you can always shoot me a message through Facebook Messenger. I look forward to hearing from you guys. I'm waiting for the time where I get a lot of people shooting me messages through Messenger. Alright guys, thanks, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye bye.